What's up, everybody? A loaded show of SEC news. We've got a DJ Lagway injury, SEC permanent rivals league, Bruce Pearl retires, and SEC rival relationship. Locked on SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's show. Like we said, loaded topics. Brandon Olsen is going to stop by from Locked On Gators. We'll get his thoughts on Billy Napier. How long does he survive? Plenty to discuss. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to Everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off your first purchase. All right, we had a ton of news come out yesterday across the SEC, so let's start here. We're going to start over in Gainesville as we heard the news that DJ Lagway is in a walking boot, according to multiple reports, dealing with a new injury following the Week 4 loss against Miami. DJ Lagway in a walking boot. Source telling Gators Online, just precautionary. His foot got stepped on against Miami, and he felt some foot soreness. On 3 reporting it is a minor toe injury. Pete Nakos tweeting out, minor toe injury, currently expected to be back for Texas on October 4th, following the bye week. Lagway also spent time in a boot in late July after he sustained a calf injury, and this all came on the heels of him missing much of the spring with a shoulder injury. So, look, they're just being overly precautionary according to these reports. Florida, of course, in the midst of a 3-game losing streak. They're on a bye this week, but Lagway is expected to be under center next week when the Gators take on the Texas Longhorns. Of course, Lagway threw for 3 touchdowns in their opener against Long Island, and has kind of regressed in each game since. He threw for 222 and a touchdown and a pick against USF, had the 5 interceptions against LSU, and threw for a career low 61 yards as a starter this past week against Miami. So it was not pretty. It's been getting uglier. Keep in mind, last season as a freshman, true freshman, he threw for 1,900 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 picks. But the heat is on. Billy Napier and this entire Florida team. I mean, 6 of Florida's final 8 games coming up are against ranked teams. By the way, the Texas game, Texas leads the all-time series 3-0-1 against Florida. Texas's victory last season in Austin was the first matchup between the programs since 1940. That game will be next Saturday, October 4th, announced as a 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern game from the Swamp. So we'll certainly keep an eye on DJ Lagway and his health heading into next week. Another big story that came out yesterday, the SEC annual opponents were leaked. Chris Lowe of On3 putting that out there. The SEC set to announce their future 9-game schedules later today, depending on when you're listening to this, watching it. But the news of permanent rivals already reached the ether as Chris Lowe put out there the permanent opponents, or as they're calling it, annual opponents. Now, I saw some people said tip of the cap for Chris Lowe and the SEC leaking this out, because all the talk Monday was still about the Auburn, Oklahoma SEC officiating error. So this did kind of overshadow it in SEC circles, so kudos to them. But a few things stand out here from the annual opponents. Alabama and LSU will no longer play. They've played annually for the every year since 1964. Florida, Tennessee goes away. Georgia, Tennessee goes away. LSU, Florida goes away. Just to kind of give you some notables, Alabama's permanents. They keep the Iron Bowl with Auburn. They keep Tennessee, but they get Mississippi State. Remember, the conference was supposed to kind of even things out. They're like, if we're not going to make it too tough on you, we're going to preserve some of these rivalries. Like Georgia gets to keep Auburn, they get to keep Florida, but they get South Carolina. LSU gets off easy. Arkansas, Ole Miss, and A&M. So LSU doesn't have to play Florida anymore. They don't have to play Alabama anymore. Then you have A&M, pretty tough. They get LSU, Mizzou, and Texas. Arkansas gets Mizzou, Texas, and LSU. So it's just kind of interesting how they tried to balance this out. Tennessee, they get Alabama, Kentucky, and Vandy. I mean, that's not bad. Look, Vandy's playing well right now. Kentucky's down a little bit. So I get what they're thinking here. Like, they want to try to make these as fair as balanced while preserving a lot of the big rivalries. But Matt Hayes had a pretty good story up at USA Today. He said, the conference that holds itself as bigger and badder than anyone just went soft. He said Florida, Tennessee was the game of the 1990s in college football. Alabama and LSU was one of the biggest games of the last 15 years. He said you can't have Alabama playing Auburn, Tennessee, and LSU. Florida can't play Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU. He said, oh, by the way, Florida won all three of its national titles since 1990, playing Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee every single season. 11 of Bama's 12 national championships, real national championships, he said, have come over the past 62 years when the Tide played LSU, Tennessee, and Auburn in the same season. So I get what he's saying. You know, it does feel like this is softening it up a little bit, playing, making sure, okay, you're going to have, if you've got two tough rival games, we're going to make sure the third one's a cupcake. I mean, what's crazy is Vanderbilt plays Auburn. That's now that's an annual rivalry game. And I get it. It's like the first time they ever played was like 1893. So it goes back a long way. But I don't know. Some of these just feel a little bit odd. Oklahoma gets Mizzou in Texas. Makes sense. But Ole Miss, Oklahoma, some of these just seem a little bit odd. We'll talk with our buddy Brandon Olsen about it coming up in just a little bit. Hey, the other big news. I mean, guys, there was just so much news yesterday. How about Bruce Pearl announcing he is retiring? The 65-year-old Auburn head basketball coach announcing his retirement. His son, Stephen Pearl, will take over. Bruce Pearl, the winningest basketball coach in Auburn history with 232 victories, led the Tigers to the Final Four in 2019 and 2025. Pearl saying 11 years ago, we planted our roots here. Told myself when I got to a point I could not give it my all, I wasn't necessarily 100%. I couldn't be the relentless competitor you expected me, that it was going to be time. Pearl led Auburn to 5 SEC championships, 6 trips to the NCAA tournament. And according to Matt Norlander of CBS Sports, there was a little bit of hotly contested background stuff going on with Auburn and their administration. Basically, he had been asking the administration to kind of name his son the coach in waiting for a while, and they said, quote, Bruce really did want to have the program in place where he thought Stephen would be able to take it over. There had been something of an understandable struggle between administration and the Pearls. Just because you're the son of a really, really good coach doesn't ensure that you'll become a really, really good coach. And at this point, in choosing to do this now, where we're basically a little over a month out from the basketball season starting, Stephen will get the job. It won't be an interim title. He will be named the guy. So I get it. It's a little bit of a tough situation there. If you're at Auburn going, wait, maybe we'd like to do a full national search and find the right guy. Look, here's the bottom line. If Stephen Pearl doesn't work out, they'll make a change. Auburn will open the season November 3rd against Bethune-Cookman. By the way, Greg Sankey putting out a statement on Monday evening saying Bruce Pearl played an important role in elevating the competitive level and popularity of men's basketball in the SEC. And Bruce coming out and saying he will still be a part of the Auburn community. He's going to help fundraise, going to be kind of that face around the program, shaking hands, all that kind of stuff. So he will still be involved. Some folks, though, theories about him maybe wanting to jump into politics, a la Tommy Tuberville. So we'll see what happens with that. All right, some other news and notes going on around the conference. How about Kirby Smart speaking with the media ahead of their big game against Alabama this weekend? Kirby Smart praising Ty Simpson, saying, quote, I would say he's probably the hottest quarterback right now in all of college football. His last 2 outings, I don't know that I've seen an incompletion. The ball does not hit the ground. Granted, Bama did play Louisiana Monroe and a bad Wisconsin team, but still, Ty Simpson has been great the last 2 weeks. Kickoff set for Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern on ABC. Going to be a big one. We'll talk more on that game throughout the week. How about over at Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin being grilled about his decision on who will be his starting quarterback. They got a big one coming up this weekend against LSU. Of course, Trinidad Chambliss has been the starter the last 2 games. And when asked about the health of Austin Simmons on Monday, Lane Kiffin said, quote, we'll have to evaluate Austin's health and then make a decision. Today was just a walkthrough, so it's not enough to evaluate, but at 100%, he is our starting quarterback. We don't know what percentage he will be at. Of course, Chambliss has run the offense very efficiently for Lane Kiffin and the Rebels, and it's clear Simmons still Might still offer the best path to the future for the Rebels, but right now, Chambliss seems to be the guy that is giving them the best chance to win. How about in some TMZ-related SEC news? I kind of like this ahead of LSU Ole Miss. A lot of folks taken aback yesterday as it was publicly revealed that Lane Kiffin's daughter, Landry, has a new boyfriend, and it is LSU starting linebacker Whit Weeks. The two have been apparently dating for a bit now, but they made it official public this week as Ole Miss hosts LSU. You kind of have to wonder who Landry will be rooting for. I assume maybe rooting for Whit Weeks to have a good game, but for her dad to win, I don't know. We will see. FanDuel officially has Ole Miss as a 1.5-point favorite over LSU this Saturday. So Georgia's a home favorite. Ole Miss is a home favorite. Tennessee a road favorite by 8.5 at Mississippi State. A&M a home favorite over Auburn. Arkansas home underdog against Notre Dame by 5.5. And South Carolina 6.5 home favorite over Kentucky. We'll get more into those lines as the week goes along. And lastly, news yesterday that the ACC is going to play 9 conference games and a 10th Power 4 non-conference game, which is kind of the same thing SEC does, and it sounds like the Big Ten's moving that way. So basically the announcement that all Power 4 leagues will have 9-game conference schedules moving forward doesn't mean all Power 4 schedules will be the same. They aren't balanced even in the conferences, but it's a step towards some more even schedules, more level playing field when we're talking about the playoff. All right. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, Brandon Olsen going to join us. We'll talk some Florida Gators with him, some more on the SEC permanent rivals, and much more right here on Locked On SEC. Hey, this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, your local coffee shop that knows your order by heart, whatever it is, these are all places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And there are some spots in SEC country that really make those communities unique. In Aggie land, it's Madisonville Christmas Company. In Auburn, folks love Wakefield Home. In Tuscaloosa, Good Old Boys Barbecue. Those are just some local spots that are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square will see you in the neighborhood. This episode also brought to you by Game Time. Look, college football is back, and of course, we're super excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping up at checkout. That's why we use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I told you guys before, I've used Game Time multiple times this year. Used them for an MLB game a couple weeks ago. Used them for a concert. You could pull up Game Time, and in just a couple of taps, you will see amazing deals. Talking about your favorite college football games, as low as $25 in some cases. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Rolling along here, Locked On SEC. And a pleasure now to be joined with our buddy Brandon Olsen, host of Locked On Gators, as Florida. The season has not gone their way. We're going to get into that in a little bit. But Brandon, first, the big news coming out in the last day. We got to find out the permanent rivals for the SEC and the future of the conference, and maybe a little bit surprising. Let's take a look at it. This was released by Chris Lowe over at On3 on Monday morning, and this leaking out that Florida's 3 permanents are going to be Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. Upon seeing those, what was your initial thoughts?
I expected Georgia. I expected Kentucky. I don't hate the South Carolina one, but I wanted it to be either Tennessee or LSU. And I know that like getting South Carolina in theory makes your strength of schedule a bit easier for you if you're Florida. And you know, we've been running the freaking gauntlet over here for the past couple of years, but I don't know. I would have preferred getting Tennessee or LSU. I don't hate having South Carolina, but I'm fine with a tougher schedule if it's a team that I hate more. And for South Carolina, the big selling point for me is that, one, I hate Shane Beamer, and two, it means now Chris Marler's on the crossover schedule for Locked On Gators, but that's about it. Yeah, it's an easier draw, and I will put that in quotes, easier. I don't think it's some bum program, but yeah, I was hoping for either Tennessee or LSU. I hate both those teams with a passion, and I was hoping to see them year in, year out.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting just kind of looking at it. I mean, obviously, we look at Alabama, they gave them Auburn, they gave them Tennessee. The Mississippi State almost feels like, remember they said one of the factors they were going to look at was balanced. So it's like, hey, we're giving you, the Iron Bowl's tough, Tennessee's tough. So here is Mississippi State to kind of even things out. But some of these I kind of look at, I'm like, Arkansas makes sense. They get Mizzou, Texas, and LSU. I think that one's perfect.
Yep.
Obviously, with Oklahoma, they get Texas, but I thought that they were going to get Arkansas, and they get Mizzou and Ole Miss. Oklahoma, Ole Miss, okay, I guess a new rivalry will be formed here. But there's just some of these that just I look at and go, I don't know if some of these make much sense. Like Auburn and Vanderbilt, that's going to be a rivalry game for decades to come. Some of these just seem odd to me.
Yeah, well, don't forget that Vanderbilt owns the state of Alabama, so Auburn's just in there. I mean, I look at Texas A&M and I'm just like, who did they piss off? Like that's a brutal one there.
Well,
for
LSU's got to been their rival since they've come in the conference, and then Texas, of course, that rivalry renewed. But yeah, I mean, they just throw in Mizzou, and it just so happens Mizzou is probably having their best 5-year run they've had in a long, long time. So you're right. I mean, some of these you kind of look on the surface and go, man, some teams kind of got screwed here.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's got a tough one too. Missouri, I mean, we'll see if Lane Kiffin's there long term, but you never know. You never know with Lane. I know Florida fans are clamoring for that one, but I just mean in general, you never know with Lane. If like every time a job opens, it's like, oh, Lane Kiffin's taking it. That's always the first thing to happen. Yeah, I feel not bad for Texas A&M because I don't feel bad for a damn soul. Honestly, I'm going to be real with that one, but yeah, that one's it's a brutal draw to get there for that schedule. Just Missouri being thrown in there just sucks, especially with Drinkwitz. Like, I think he's a great coach for Missouri, and so I view him there long term. And so he's built a hell of a program lately. That sucks for them. Just brutal.
I think LSU kind of lucked out because there's been so much made of that LSU-Alabama rivalry that's been, basically it's been a ratings grabber for the last decade plus, 15 years really. When Saban went there, I mean, every year LSU-Alabama was always one of the top 10 highest rated games in college football. And when we had initially heard some of the permanent rivals, it was like, oh, well, that one's going to stay. Well, LSU gets Arkansas, Ole Miss, and A&M. I think every LSU fan saying, sign me up for that. Like, again, like Arkansas, we'll see what happens with them in their future. Ole Miss is good right now, but to your point, is Lane going to be there forever? And A&M seems to be pretty good, but there's a reason why they've developed the moniker Texas 8-4, because it's kind of basically what they do every year. So I don't know, just kind of looking at it, glancing, it's like, Vanderbilt, I guess they keep the rivalry with Tennessee, but Auburn and Mississippi State for Vanderbilt just seems like here's what was left over. You guys take this. But what's crazy about this, Brandon, is they even said, like, yes, these are the permanent annual opponents, but we have the right to change these down the road if we want them. It's like, well, what's the point of having permanent rivals?
That's the funniest part of it to me. Like, and look, I get it as far as going, because of parity, we don't want teams to get permanent rivals that end up being dumpster fires long term, and that they're just like any team could have two of those three end up being like, oh yeah, we actually end up sucking at football long term, and so we don't want to have those, and so you have that option, we'll call it, to change it, but not very permanent to go 4 years, not very permanent to go, yeah, by the way, a college career, or what used to be a college career, now it's about half of a college career, is 4 years, especially if you're Diego Pavia. But I think that, yeah, it's I just hate calling it permanent. It just annoys me to go, yeah, permanent for 4 years. But
well, that's why they're using the word annual. These are our annual opponents. I mean, the interesting part of this, and we'll see when the full schedule comes out, I do like, though, that we're going to get a little bit more like baseball did this recently, Major League Baseball. They were like, look, we're just going to have everybody play everybody.
Yep.
And you're going to go to every opposing venue every year. And I was like, that is awesome. That is parity. Instead of playing, a ton of divisional games against your crappy division, if you're in a bad division, it just the checks and balances, it weighs itself out a little bit more. And that's what's going to happen here with the SEC schedule is, yes, these will be your 3 annual opponents. These will not change every year. Obviously, home and away will change with these. But your other 6 games that go into a 9-game conference slate will be, you'll play these 6 games, these 6 teams, and then the next year, we'll see how they do it. Do they do what they just did the last 2 years of home and then away? But either way, once every 4 years, you will go to one of these venues. And I think that's what's been lacking. When we talk about, has A&M ever been to Athens? It's like, how are we going a decade with a team not going to a certain venue? This just gives a little bit more parity and balance to the schedule.
Yeah. Also, how the hell does Texas A&M just always have home games? Because I feel like Florida's played them quite a few times, and they've come to Gainesville twice since coming to the SEC. And I don't know why every team's like, yeah, we've never been to Texas A&M, or Texas A&M's never come to us. I don't know what voodoo they're pulling over there, or who they're bribing with the oil money, that they just always get home games. That's insane to me. But I do like, playing everybody. I think that there's certain times you go, oh yeah, well, you got to avoid playing this team the 3 or 4 years they were good. And it's like, you don't get to do that anymore. You don't get to like Florida fans complain that basically since Billy Napier's gotten hired, like, oh, we've played a gauntlet every year. And I was like, now it's not a gauntlet every year now. And if you do happen to play a gauntlet every year, that's just really bad luck. But for the most part, it's like, well, everybody's going to play everybody over this short amount of time. And it's like you mentioned, way more parity here. It's also going to be way more exciting. Like I love personally when Florida plays Auburn, because I hate Auburn's fan base. I have been very open about that. I hate them. They're soft as hell. And so, like, I hate their fan base. And so I look forward to facing them in anything. We've kind of destroyed them in basketball. Haven't played them in football since I took over Locked On Gators. So I'm excited to be able to do that and talk trash to Auburn at least. And just, get mixed up with other fan bases that we don't get to usually see.
To your point, A&M came to Gainesville last year, but since 2020, Florida has gone to College Station twice in 2020 and 2022, and Florida come to Gainesville once.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very strange. All right, he is Brandon Olsen. When we return, we will get into a little bit on Billy Napier and the Florida Gators and what the hell is going on down there in Gainesville. We'll discuss that next. More with Brandon Olsen in just a second, but first, Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. They have more IIHS Top Safety Pick Awards than anyone else. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes, they sweat all the details. Mazda, they bring the same intention to how they craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With the all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you could drive with confidence through almost any season. And just like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every moment move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. Get yourself in a Mazda today. Continue our conversation with Brandon Olsen, Locked On Gators. And Brandon, Gators sitting here at 1-3, heading into their bye week, and not exactly where we thought they would be. I mean, look, I thought, okay, at worst 2-2, because South Florida just seemed like a gimme. They didn't get that one. Thought, maybe they could have a chance to compete with LSU or Miami. And the bottom line is, through the first 4 weeks, I think the defense overall has been pretty damn solid. I mean, they held Miami to, they were on the field almost the entire game against Miami, and still only held them to 26. All things considered, I think that's pretty decent. Held LSU to 20. South Florida held them to 18. So the defense has done their job. Why has this offense struggled so bad, in your opinion?
Our head coach refuses to give up play calling duties, and it's become incredibly predictable at this point. You played Miami last year in week 1, and Lance Guidry came out right after the game and went, Well, we knew what their first 4 plays were going to be. We knew what a bunch of their plays were going to be because it's the same thing they put on film last year. And then this year you lost to USF, and USF players were like, yeah, we knew what the play calls were going to be. Like, you're getting out coached by the group of 5 players at this point. It's ridiculous. Your offense can't get going there. There's been horrible miscommunication issues on the offense between quarterback and offensive line. And your offensive line, even when there haven't been miscommunication issues, just haven't done their job, which is what so many of us thought would be the strength of this team, because you're returning 4 of your 5 starters. And the new starter at right tackle was here last year. And so we kind of thought, hey, there'll be a fairly seamless transition there. Hasn't been the case at all with this offense. DJ Lagway, of course, save maybe the biggest for last here is that he was injured all offseason, not practicing. And I think everybody kind of knew that would hold him back a bit. I don't think anybody anticipated it causing the level of regression that we've seen so far, because from that time not practicing, his mechanics have fallen apart. You look at the film and he's throwing fadeaways all the time, and he's sailing everything, and he looks shell-shocked at times. I mean, you look at him on the sideline in the third quarter of that LSU game, and he's looking at the iPad, and it looks like he's reading Chinese out there. Like, it's just, he looks so confused, so shell-shocked at different points in time. He's got to get it together, and honestly, I don't know how you do that with him, because it feels like he's taken a step back mentally, physically, mechanically, and I don't know if you try to prioritize one of those things and hope that the rest follow. Like, do you prioritize mechanics and hope that everything else follows suit? I don't know how you fix it there, really, but this defense deserves all the credit in the world, because while, LSU scored 20 points, 7 of those were a pick six. Another 3 of them were directly off of a field goal, off of an interception. Against Miami, I mean, like you mentioned, they were on the field the whole damn time. Like the fact that Miami only scored 26 and 13 of them came in the final 4 minutes and 5 seconds, incredible for this defense. I mean, they've just been playing playoff caliber, championship caliber defense right now. But your offense is, it feels like I'm watching a Will Muschamp Florida Gators team again.
How much is the offensive line to blame? Because I remember talking with you in the spring and us having the conversation. This could be one of the better offensive lines in the country. Jake Slaughter, I think consensus, most people said one of the best centers in the country. So how much are they to blame for lack of protection for Lagway, or maybe, forcing him into making some bad decisions, I guess?
I think they deserve a good chunk of the blame. I will also say that when I mean communication issues that I've been talking about, a lot of that comes down to, I don't know who's more responsible for it, DJ Lagway or Jake Slaughter, but you watch the LSU game, watch the Miami game, they're getting pummeled in every way. You watch the LSU game, and LSU isn't really beating Florida's blockers. They're coming in completely untouched because of constant miscommunication issues and protection that calls. So I don't know if that would be more on DJ Lagway or Jake Slaughter. I would imagine it's a combination of them both. But this offensive line just hasn't done their part. I think pass protection has been mostly communication. I think run blocking has just been, they're not doing a good enough job of it. And we heard a ton about Florida's strength and conditioning program and how they look great. They really do. And I can't say the words that I said to describe it on Twitter, because this is a family show. But they looked really good, but we'll say that offensive line in the trenches look like Tarzan, play like Jane lately. That I think that's the best way to say it, is that they're just not doing their part, especially in the run game, getting no push whatsoever. Jaden Baugh is working his tail off to pick up some extra yardage. Jacoby Jackson finally broke out a little bit against Miami after a really bad start to the year for him. But, if you lose in the trenches, you're going to lose every damn game at this point. I think the defense is good enough to keep them in games, and offense gives you even average football. You're going to win some games. But, offensive line deserves, honestly, a lot of the blame. And I think that's where most people that were higher on Florida, there were people that didn't think Florida was great. I don't know anybody that went, they're going to go 1-3 to start the year. That hasn't happened. First time in my life they've gone 1-3 to start the year. And so I think that a lot of people were like, all right, it's going to be a good offensive line. And that's been the sure thing has just completely gone kaput for Florida Gators fans.
So the big question here, Brandon, is what happens to Billy Napier? Obviously, last season he was, by midseason, most people were saying, let's fire him. And then he redeemed himself. He ran all 4 in a row. The team got better, and then that built the optimism coming into this season. So I say all this to say the road ahead is absolutely brutal. You come out of the bye week, you get Texas at home, then you're at Texas A&M, both top 10 teams right now. You're home for Mississippi State, who's improved. You play Georgia on the neutral field, which is, top 5 team right now. And then on the backstretch, at Kentucky, at Ole Miss, home for Tennessee, home for Florida State. 3 of those teams in the top 15 currently. I guess it's as simple as say winning cures all. If he's able to run off some wins, he survives. But I guess the big question here, Brandon, is when do you pull the trigger if you're Scott Strickland and the Florida administration?
I'm glad you said if I'm Scott Strickland and the Florida administration, because I would have pulled the trigger last year after Texas A&M. As far as when they actually pull the trigger, I can't fully answer that for 2 reasons. One, I'm not a spineless loser like Scott Strickland is. So I can't think like a spineless loser like that. But 2, I think that we're at a point in time where there's more factors going into replacing a coach than ever before. You've got the transfer portal window opening. Coach gets fired 30 days after that. Transfer portal windows open for players, or opens immediately for 30 days. Transfer portal opens for those players, and so they can leave. I think right now we're at a point in time where it's more important about when you have your new coach as opposed to when you fire your old coach. I think that you need to have a coach in place by the actual transfer portal window opening and by signing day. I think that maybe you let the coach stay for a bit, prevent some opt-outs. And I've said this before, like, this is the scummy side of business. It really is, but it's still business. You keep your head coach intact, and guys burn their red shirts. They're less likely to opt out. They're less likely to enter the transfer portal before the end of the season. And maybe you keep some and spend that time trying to retain your actual talent. I think that Scott Strickland is giving Billy Napier every opportunity to fight for this. I'm gonna say something that is sounds delusional, but Florida is not mathematically out of the SEC title picture or the college football playoff. They're not going to make it. I'm not saying they got a shot at that. I'm saying mathematically it's not impossible. And I think that the firing will happen when it becomes mathematically impossible. I think that's what they're most likely waiting for, is saying, hey, like, I gave you every opportunity to rattle these wins off. I gave you every opportunity to do this. You failed there. And so we're going to part ways here. I think that's more likely what it is than really anything else. It's not a buyout. Like, I've seen people say, oh, it's because if you let him go this week, then it's a $21 million buyout. And if you let him go at the end of the season, it's $19 million. So you save $2 million. That's not how math works, because you're still paying him during the season. So you're really saving a couple $100,000. It's not the buyout. I think that the most likely reason is when it's mathematically impossible, then you cut him off, because you've seen a turnaround, right? And nobody believes it's going to happen. Nobody believed it was going to happen last year either. And so I do think that, and when Billy goes, oh, we're a dozen plays away from being 3-0, no one believes that either. But I do think that's one of those things where you tell Scott Strickland that, and Scott Strickland's like, well, I guess so, because he is an idiot. We'll give him, he is an idiot, so we'll say that. But I think that that's more so what it comes down to.
They are spitting on a player away from being 2-2 at least, so you can make that case. But it's look, it's not the crazy. Look, you want to go full optimist. Arch Manning's had his struggles so far. You get them in the swamp. It's their first tough, hostile road SEC environment that he's going to start in. So again, if the swamp brings it, it's not crazy to think that they can win that one. Now again,
what a disappointing game that turned out to be too, right? Like, everybody was like, oh yeah, DJ and Arch are going to be just stout. It's the overrated bowl right now.
I had somebody telling me those are going to be 2 of the possible number 1 future overall picks in the NFL draft. They're like, Arch is getting all the hype, but watch Lagway. And it still could happen, but it's just, yeah, for all the hype of the preseason, that game is going to be not as, sexy as it once was. But again, those two guys could go on to be future NFL stars, and we'll be looking back on this going, God, we really underhyped that game, but we'll see what happens. He is Brandon Olsen, Locked On Gators. Brandon, always appreciate the time, man. And hey, there's still time. I think that 2021 article about Lane Kiffin to Florida, we can rehash that. We can dig that up and just put it out there again.
Oh, I'm sure you could find more recent ones from last year. People wrote 1,000 of them. It was the Lane train to Gainesville. Oh, I can promise you. You look it up right now, and I promise you, there's articles saying bring Lane Kiffin to Gainesville.
Yeah, well, if and when it happens with Napier, we'll discuss that down the road. Brandon, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Our thanks again to Brandon Olsen for joining us. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And hey, a reminder, on Thursdays, you can check out On Fire TV, the college football kickoff show with Drake Toll and Gary Patterson and Jesse Holly, getting you set for the big weekend of college football. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.